Hey Royals, welcome to Tamira's Throne Room. My name is Tamira, and today I'm going to give another prophetic word. This one is called What Did God Say to You? And so this is another encouraging word that goes with the When God Gives You a Word series. And so God leads me to give these words because I'm going through them and then I'm giving them to you. Okay. And it's so that I can relate to your situation when God gives you a word. And so if this word is for you, you're going to know because you're going to be able to relate to it. And so it should help you as you go through the process of pursuing your word that God gave you. Okay. And so I'm going to start with this. So about a year ago, God gave me a word, and one of the steps that I had to take was to create this channel. And so before that, I did not have the confidence a year ago. I did not have the character a year ago, and I cared too much about what other people thought of me. And a big thing that I cared about was what my family thought about me. It's never really necessarily the people that I don't know. It's always been what people I do know think about me. Okay. And so I wasn't ready a year ago. And so for about 3 years, God had been working on my confidence and my character and my fear of rejection from people and those within my family. And for a time, it was like circumstances happened where I was put in new environments where I began to grow closer with God and was unable to be around those in my old environment. So I was not able to be in toxic relationships. I was not able to be around my family all the time or any dysfunctions and stuff like that. I was completely in a place where God was teaching me to just listen to his voice, to just listen to what he had to say about my character, to listen to what he had to say about me and who I was and what I could do, and not, be around people who had all these opinions about who I was and who I grew up as and all these different things that, were part of an old environment. And God was trying to bring me out of that. And so in the new environment, fear was not necessarily a problem for me. I was bolder in speaking up. I was bolder in speaking my mind, in having my own opinion, in going to places all by myself. I would travel more solo. I would just do things that were bold. Okay. So I had no fear basically, unless, it was common sense fear. But my faith grew as well because I was no longer putting um, all of my validation or all my faith in other people's opinions about me, in how other people may see me. I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't around it anymore. And so it was like my faith, I had no choice but to depend on God, God's opinion about me, God's word to me, what God was saying about me, because, and so that grew my faith in God. Um, as well as just being financially dependent on God. And so my character went from negative to positive. All right. I had a more idealistic characteristics. Like I would start seeing people in a way where I could encourage them and be able to see the good in them, to be able to see what God put in them, even if I did know that they had bad things about them as well. Okay. So I was able to discern the difference. And I didn't think I liked people before that until I started encouraging them out of their own negativity. So, yeah, my character was being built in that new environment. My boldness was being built in that new environment. The things that I was learning about myself was being built in that new environment. And so what God did with me was he took me out of an old environment where I couldn't see what was in me because of all the dysfunctions, the negative thinking, the toxic relationships, and put me in an environment, a new environment where I spent time with him, which truly revealed what was true about me, what was in my heart, what he had created me to do. And so these were things, since I was basically spending time with God, you don't have a lot of people spending that time with you and God. It's just you and God. And so only God is seeing the change in you until unless you're around other people who are seeing that change while you're going through it. Okay, so God did this because the word he gave me could not manifest in that old environment around the wrong people and in an unhealed mindset. So there's no way that I could be encouraging you to go for your word if I was still in an old environment where I was thinking I couldn't even go for my own. And so now I'm coming out of this new environment and I've been revisiting these old environments again. All right. And so not I wasn't realizing when I did this that I needed to set boundaries to keep everything I uncovered about myself in the new environment. All right. So to protect, you know, what you've learned there, because there's a chance that if you are don't have boundaries, there's a chance that people will just dip their opinions about who you are. And yes, you should be strong enough to know who you are. But the thing is, if you spend time long enough around people who are constantly like, you can't do this, you can't do that, there's no way this is going to happen for you, then you're going to start thinking in that way. So what God had told me was, you have to set boundaries. And so I began to notice that I've changed, but the people in the old environment hadn't necessarily seen that change. So therefore, I noticed it became more difficult for them to see the change in me that God had shown me, and I would start questioning myself. All right, questioning the word God gave me, questioning, oh well, have I really changed? Or if I've changed, then how come when I go back to this old environment? Because when I would go back to that old environment, the old things were waiting. The you can't, the you don't have the personality, the character. I remember you as this. I remember you used to do this. I remember that. I remember this. The that's not how I remember you. Okay? And the did God really tell you even was in a way thrown at me. And the attack was on my character. Okay? And it was almost debilitating to the point where I was like, because these people in the old environment can't see it, maybe I am that way. And so you can see how an environment can have you in a state of reverting back to your old way of thinking. All right. And because of your heart or my heart, I had been thinking, well, I know this person that is speaking into my life. This person helped raise me, or this person I admire, I really look up to. And so you really want to be able to receive from them, but sometimes you can't receive from everybody, even those you have to be able to set boundaries against what you're going to receive from that person and what you're not going to receive. Okay? So I would literally be sitting and listening, and I would know immediately when this person was talking to me, that it wasn't lining up with the word God gave me. It wasn't lining up with what God said about me. And in the last 2 weeks, God was like, you have to, again, have boundaries. Even if you love people, even if they are family, etc. Okay? You have to have boundaries, because what the enemy was doing in my case was he saw how close I was to God's promise on my life. Okay? He saw that I was having faith that literally made no sense, because I was working towards what God had told me and I wasn't really seeing many results. Okay? And so the enemy was using the people I looked up to, or the people I loved and listened to and admired, and was basically setting up distractions and just using them to speak to me in a way that was contrary to what God had told me. Okay? And so in that same way, it doesn't have to be family. It could be a friend. It could be someone that you look up to. But what I'm trying to say is you have to be able to discern what you are going to receive from people and what you are not. Because if it doesn't line up with what God told you, if it doesn't line up with what God has said about your character and where he's taking you and what you can do, then you have the right to set those boundaries and say, I'm not going to listen to this, if you're going to disrespect me, or if you're going to say something that is just not right, you'll know it's not right because your spirit will definitely let you know. But yeah, at one point, I even thought that people, that my friends were rejecting me because of the people that, because of just the things that have happened in my life where I had been rejected and rejected and rejected. And so eventually it is your responsibility to know the difference. And that is something that I had to learn, is to be careful about who I let speak into my life. And that if it doesn't line up with what God has said, then I need to have, we have to have the ability to say no. So eventually, I had to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to listen to this, because what did God say about me? Okay? What did God say that I can do? What did God tell me my word was? What did God say to me? He didn't say it to everybody else. He said it to me. So what did God say to you? Okay? Because you have to be able to renounce the lies that people speak over you, that they just think, that they just have an opinion about. The opinion is an opinion. It is not God's opinion about you. If that's not what God said to you, then it's not true, okay? And I had to speak up for myself. um Sometimes it's honestly best to be quiet, but to speak up for yourself is just to speak for yourself and say, that is not what God said about me. Okay. And I had to remind myself that even if people I admired were not in agreement, that God was in agreement with what I was doing. God was in agreement with what I was working towards. And you have to have a mentality, a mindset where you're strong enough to say, okay, it's okay if they don't want to listen. It's okay if they don't want to receive from me, but I'm receiving what God said from God. Okay. And so if God said I could do it, then I can do it. And that even if people reject what God said to me, God did not reject it. Okay. God did not reject me. And you have to know for yourself, what did God say to you? Again, what did God say to you? Because people don't know most of the time. Only you know. All right. So the downfall for me would have been if I had actually believed what people were saying about me, that I really admired, that I really loved. If I had listened to what they had said, I would not walk into my promise. I would not see what God has said about me, because I chose to believe in people that didn't even hear the word God gave me, people that didn't know of the word God gave me. But I knew the word God gave me. I knew what God said. And whether it lined up with their opinions or not is not, it does not matter, okay? Because at the end of the day, what God said is what he meant. So I want to say, keep trusting in God and stay in faith. It will be worth it. Okay. Do not allow the enemy to talk you out of your promise, and do not allow the enemy to make you believe in lies. All right. Remember, God is not the author of confusion. This doesn't mean don't take critique, from people, but you have to know the difference between someone trying to actually help push you into purpose and someone that may not even know that they're being used in a way that is dragging you away from purpose. Okay. And so I hope this helped you. My oven is going off. Sweet potatoes. But that was the word. Peace, Royals.